It's Just Business with Steve Thomas and your host, Chris Larry. Welcome to another episode of It's Just Business, everyone. You are stuck with me as a host. Sorry about that. My name is Steve Thomas. Chris Larry is out doing other more important things in our little show. But fortunately, we have, as always, the super sub, Alex Cease. How are you today, Alex?
I am doing good. I've had a long week of work, but it's over. And so now I'm here to do another podcast. But, you know. I would
just like to disclose to the audience the fact that for scheduling reasons that aren't worth going into, we are recording this on Friday night, literally at 9 o'clock Eastern on a Friday night, which just shows us the complete and utter lack of anything related to social life, entertainment that you and I have in our lives.
Yes, that is true. That has long been documented, I think.
Yeah, I mean, normally you would try to hide that fact, but I, frankly, at this point, just embrace it.
Right. You know? I mean, my plan is I'm going to record this show, then I'm going to go and watch What We Do in the Shadows with my wife, and that'll be it. So. Is that
a show? I've never heard of this.
Okay, it's a show on FX about, it's a mockumentary about vampires. So
I'd like to make a recommendation to the world, actually, here too, and I credit my stepson for this. If you guys have watched Squid Game on Netflix.
Yeah, Jamal was talking about that the other day to us.
I glazed over because I hadn't heard about it when he mentioned it, but now I've watched it. Outstanding. You guys ought to watch that.
Okay, I haven't watched it yet. I got to get Netflix back. I canceled Netflix for a while because they had nothing good. So I'd finished it. I'd finished all of Netflix during the pandemic.
Netflix used to be like you can get any movie source, and now they've gone away from that to just be the separate original content source.
Well, I mean, Steve, in business parlance, what happened was Disney and Fox and everyone else started their own streaming service and said, you can't take our stuff anymore.
That's exactly right.
And, so now Netflix is like, oh, snap. We have all the money in the world. We can make our own stuff.
And normally they do pretty good.
Yeah.
Because remember, Netflix started as basically an outgrowth of those CD clubs. Remember
right.
from 20 years ago, where they would send you a bunch of movies every month.
Well, okay, so that's how they started. Fun little thing. I almost got a job with them working in their CD or DVD distribution hub in Silver Spring. But it was minimum wage, and I was like, you guys are going nowhere. I'm not going to deal. I don't want to join up with this company.
You want to hear one of the biggest business busts ever? This relates to Netflix.
Okay.
Blockbuster Video had a chance to buy Netflix for some comparatively minimal
remember
amount,
that.
Like $100 million or something.
I don't even think it was that much. I think it was like 50 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was some really low number in business terms. And they were like, this was like Alex.
Yeah.
This business isn't going anywhere.
Yes.
We'll do fine with our
box
DVD
stores selling VHSs is the way to stay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now Blockbuster Video is no more.
There's one left in Alaska, I believe. It's
the one corporate-owned store that they refused to close.
Right.
It's something to do with a lease or ground lease or something.
Yeah.
But to speak of other things that have made a big mistake and are about to go down.
We're going to go through a lot of people making mistakes today, looking at our agenda.
Yeah, this is a good athletes and others behaving badly story show. I love these. Chris hates these athletes behaving badly things, but I love them. So in this respect, I'm glad you're here. So let's start with the NBA.
Okay, let's start there. Oh boy, what did you idiots do this time?
They decided Clinton Portis was the guy to emulate. That's what they did.
Right.
Which is always your first mistake, unless you're trying to be a running back, then yes.
Right.
But
if you want to kick ass as a running back, be Clinton Portis. If you want to do anything else, do not be Clinton Portis.
Literally anything in the entire world, don't emulate Clinton. But unfortunately they did. So 18 NBA players have been charged with defrauding something called the NBA's Health and Welfare Benefit Plan. And they have been charged with various counts of insurance fraud in the U.S. Southern District of New York, which is federal court in I would assume that's the New York City, probably encompasses the Southern District of New York.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Yeah. So if you go back in the Wayback Machine like 2 months ago, Clinton Portis and Robert McCune, who's another former Redskin, were in the middle of this scandal where these yahoos did the same exact thing to the something called the NFL's, I believe it was called the Pete Rozelle Medical Reimbursement Plan, I think it was.
Yeah.
And in that case, what they were doing was they were forging fake prescriptions for huge, massive, medical equipment. Some of it was all kinds of ridiculous things. Some of it was like female related. Others were like for animals and all these things. The purpose of the plan is to make up the gap for those players who've been hurt and need like real equipment that their insurance doesn't cover. This plan is supposed to buy this stuff for them, but you don't need like female equipment and horse equipment if you're
Clinton Portis bought an iron lung or something. I feel like
something. Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Right. And so the insurance company, which was Cigna, caught on to this, who was administering the plan.
Right.
Because, newsflash, insurance companies employ and retain a truckload of auditors for this very reason.
Right. They spend as much money doing this as they do on actually taking care of your health care.
Yeah, they do, because there's so many stupids out there who want to try these things. So obviously, these NBA players saw what Clinton and Robert McCune and others were doing and decided that they could do this too. And so and these are 18 players here, and I'm going to read some of the names.
There's some big names in that list.
Yeah, because this story got a lot of attention, and the NFL one really didn't, because it was really only Clinton Portis anybody had ever heard.
Oh, I mean,
Carlos Rogers was involved.
There, yeah. There were like 4 NFL players. 2 of them are somewhat notable, and if you're a Redskins fan, you knew all of them because I think they were all ex-Redskins.
Well, yeah, it was McCune and Portis and Rogers, and I think there might have been one other in there. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
But of that list, Portis, they all had been retired for several years.
Right.
Portis was the biggest name, but these guys are different. So, ironically enough, these guys allegedly did about the same amount of damage. 3.9, the NBA players I'm talking about filed a total of 3.9 million in false claims, which got paid 2.5 million. That's the same exact number as the NFL players' claims, which is weird. But
well, it makes me wonder if once you get past that threshold, if that's when people are picking up on it, and
Yeah, maybe that might be the case.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the ins and outs of insurance auditing, but there's obviously a threshold.
Yeah, I mean, with any auditing,
you might get a nasty worded letter if you defrauded them out of $100, but if you hit some number, they're going to come after you.
And apparently, it's somewhere around 3.9 million.
Yeah, or before that, because the feds are involved here. So anyway, so what they were doing basically, there was one guy who was the linchpin of the operation, Terrence Williams, who I believe was a first-round draft pick several years ago.
Yeah, I mean, so I recognize the name,
Yeah, so he's masterminding the scheme. Meaning he came up with this, and he's directing these things. And so what happens is he's telling people what to do and what to file, and then he gets a kickback from the players after the claim comes in. So for those of you wondering, Terrence Williams, 11th overall pick in 2009 with the Nets, and then the Houston Rockets and the Sacramento Kings, and then the Celtics, and then a whole bunch of other teams nobody's ever heard of in Mexico and other places. So that's Terrence Williams. And by the way, I'm getting this story on the Daily Wire, but it was all over the place. But the credit for this is Daily Wire. 18 ex-NBA players charged in $3.9 million benefit scheme by Joe Morgan and Eric Quintanar, I guess. So here's the other name, the big names. Antone Wright, Darius Miles, Glenn Big Baby Davis.
That's a big one.
Tony
right there.
Allen. Yeah, Tony Allen's a big one. Shannon Brown is a big one. Davis and Brown won NBA titles with the Celtics and the Lakers, respectively. I think Tony Allen got one with the Celtics, too.
I think so.
And Antoine Wright was around forever and with a whole bunch of a million other teams. And there's others, but those are the names you've probably heard of. Jamario Moon's another one some people's heard of. So they've been charged with conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud and wire fraud. 16 of them were arrested Thursday. 19 have been charged. The 19th is apparently somebody's spouse, which is like, thanks, honey, for getting me involved in this.
Right.
And by the way, just to, further emphasizes stupidity, Shannon Brown's married to some pop star.
Mm-hmm. He doesn't need the money.
Right, and you're going to argue over $100,000 dental claim or whatever.
Well, and
it's crazy.
What I saw was I think his total kickback was about $250,000 for all this, which
right.
in relative schemes to what you probably made in the NBA and what you're living off of, that's not much.
And again, he's married to some pop singer,
right.
So even though Shannon may not have a career, she does. So yeah, they clearly don't need the money. If they do need the money, they're dumber than we think they are.
Sure.
Put it that way.
Well, I mean, the one thing that stood out to me when I was reading the story you sent me this morning or yesterday about this was the line of frequently these players were filing claims in states where they were not in the state. And
yeah, one of them was playing basketball in Taiwan and filed a dental claim in the U.S.
Yeah, in like
crazy.
Tampa Bay.
This is crazy.
Like, so, this isn't the smartest group when it came to this scam. We can say that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And by the way, as an update to the Clinton Portis story, all these guys, if you missed it, we did a whole segment on it about a month ago. You can find it on AJB, but all of them now pled guilty. Portis and Tamarick Vanover actually miraculously got a hung jury. We did go to trial, got a hung jury, and then the court immediately turned around and said, we're going to try you in 2 days, business days, again, because I don't know what, obviously something crazy went on in with the jury. With the hung, because they hung in like less than a day, and that's not how hung juries work. So some like malfeasance probably went on. But anyway, when that happened, they broke and pled guilty. So the first group of those guys is going to be sentenced later this month, and then Portis is scheduled to be sentenced in January. Carlos Rogers got a year in federal prison.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah, right. So you got to figure Clinton's doing some time. So what can we expect from these guys? Probably somewhere about the same. You don't win against the feds very often. The feds have unlimited resources when it comes to prosecutions in the Justice Department, and there's almost nobody who can, unless you're Bill Gates, who can outspend the federal government when it comes to prosecution. So they tend to win all these things. So if you get charged in a massive insurance scheme with 18 other players, the odds are overwhelming that you're going to go down. So you have to think, because of the amount of money involved, they're probably looking at about the same as what the NFL players.
I think it's also fair to say that when it comes to this kind of case, the feds aren't going to bring it unless they are almost sure they can win it anyway.
Well, yeah, and see, the feds are very picky, having been down this road with these guys. If they don't like the case, they're just going to go, oh, no, deal with the local cops on this, or like, the states on this. So, the Justice Department likes either celebrities getting in trouble or slam dunk cases, and then they throw a ton of resources at it.
I love the little double entendre you just put in there, by the way.
I didn't even know I did it. What
slam dunk cases? We're talking about the NBA?
Slam dunk case. Well, basketball. It took me a minute to catch up with you. I'm sorry. It's late on a Friday night when we should be out like drinking in bars and stuff.
Right.
So anyway, so the feds don't usually take these cases unless they know they're going to win, and then they throw a ton of money at it. And if one thing we've learned from the federal government recently, it's they throw a ton of money at everything. So anyway, so this is the story. So I don't think any of these people are active anymore. So I don't, unless I'm mistaken, I think all 18 are out, and so there's not going to be any NBA backlash for this because they're all now private citizens. By the way, the guy that Alex mentioned about the dental work was Gregory Smith, and he submitted $48,000 worth of claims for dental work done in Beverly Hills, but it was in Taiwan.
Oh, it was Beverly Hills.
Playing basketball at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it says, in another instance, 3 former players submitted claims for dental work, including root canals and crowns, on the same 6 sets of teeth. Those teeth are really bad. They need a whole bunch of work.
I mean, I guess it could happen, but not likely.
So I think the biggest names people would probably recognize is probably Glenn Davis and then Tony Allen. And if you're a Laker fan, you know Shannon Brown.
I mean, there's a lot. Let's put it this way: a lot of these guys are not stars. There's a lot of very notable players in the NBA there, guys who are probably 6 men, that kind of thing.
Well, that's Glenn Davis to a T right there.
Yeah.
Of course, Glenn made a ton of money.
Isn't that the irony with all this? I mean, all these guys make a ton of money and then they lose it somehow. And
it's funny because being an athlete is a bit of a dichotomy because most of them, especially basketball, don't finish college. And they don't have any skills because they've been playing, ball their whole life. And so, I mean, there's certainly very valid career paths for people who don't go to college, especially, and a lot of college degrees are worthless and don't do anything for you. But when you have no life skills other than basketball, and now you're done playing basketball, you have nothing else to do. And so these guys, some of them are probably desperate, at least mentally, if not financially.
Right.
And they're not very smart. Smart people don't do stuff like this.
They're not putting their money away when they're making it. I mean, I get that. They're not.
You get a savings account, an IRA, and a mutual fund, for Christ's sake.
Right.
Don't do this.
Well, I mean, the one irony is, of course, guys like Portis and Eddie George. Like, look, I'm not claiming Clinton Portis is a smart guy, but he legitimately got conned out of his money by a money manager. Like, that can happen to anybody. Unfortunately,
and you mentioned Eddie George. Same thing happened to Eddie.
Yes,
George.
yeah, exactly. Eddie George. I think the story is he was basically homeless after that happened. Like he.
Yeah, I don't know if he was literally living in a car, but I know he lost everything.
Yeah, and that happens to guys all the time. Who's the Redskins quarterback? Mark Brunell. Same thing. Yeah,
Mark Brunell got taken in, I think, real estate or something.
It was like some religious scam artist.
Okay.
Like, I'm gonna build a big church. And there's your money.
And now it's gone.
Right. I think that's what happened to him. Yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines. So that's the basketball story. We'll see what happens. It's going to take, doesn't take a long time. Especially federal cases, they drag on and on and on. Because federal courts are in no hurry to get anything done. They don't do anything fast. So it'll go to trial. Either they'll settle or it'll go to trial. But a trial won't happen this year. It'll be next year. If I would think in 2022. But if these guys are smart, they'll all settle it. Unless they're truly, truly, and totally innocent, which is very unlikely. Very unlikely, to be honest. I mean, just knowing the feds like I know them. The odds of them making a mistake and going, we should have charged the other Glenn Davis, not you, are slim. And Slim is on a bus on his way out of town,
No, I mean, what these guys probably should be doing right now is figuring out the best plea bargains they can get. That's what they should be doing.
And Shannon Brown needs to be apologizing to his pop star wife.
Yes, that too.
Okay, so that is the basketball story, the Clinton Portis Part 2 story. Again, what's the moral of our story?
Don't do things that Clinton Portis does.
That's exactly right. Don't do Clinton Portis things. Right. That might have to be the title of our show. Don't do Clinton Portis things.
I'm trying to remember that. Yes.
The other half of our athletes behaving badly thing, really not an athlete, but involved in athletics. And we're going to touch again on the Ryan Vermilion scandal. This is the current suspended Washington football team trainer.
Athletic director.
We talked about...
Yeah.
But he's the head trainer, basically, is what he is.
Yes.
We talked about this on the last episode of the Hog Slide very briefly, but I wanted to touch on it again here and go into a little bit more depth because we do know more about the story now than we did. And if you didn't listen to that, you can listen to it here. So Ryan Vermilion is a guy who has been with Ron Rivera for, what we decide, 18 years?
18 years, yeah.
Yeah, at Carolina.
A very long time.
Yeah, a super long time. And so the feds, in the form of the Drug Enforcement Agency, raided Vermilion's house and the Redskins, or Washington's headquarters in Ashburn, this past week. So why, you ask? Well, obviously, the DEA does only drugs. So there's drugs involved. What we now know, and this is courtesy, I believe, of NBC Sports Washington. I think
I actually saw it in the Post, but I think they all kind of leak it to each other.
I saw it there, but yeah. So one or the other. We didn't come up with this. It's either the Post or NBC Sports or someone else. Apparently, this involves, the rumor has it that this involves prescription drugs. Now, my original thought, remember, Alex, was this can either be like street drugs and he's involved in some kind of drug ring, or the worst case scenario is he's involved in passing out painkillers to players and whatnot. It sounds like, I don't know about the player part. We don't know that yet. But he's passing out prescription drugs to somebody.
To somebody, and let's be honest. If you're building a pie chart of what this probably could have been, the biggest piece of that pie was always going to be it's pills or prescription drugs given to players. The odds that he was, running a coke ring or selling weed or whatever, that was a very small sliver of the pie.
Yeah, it was. The chances that weren't good because that just seems it seems like
a guy who's making
a TV
millions
show, not reality.
As an athletic trainer or whatever. And I know they don't make what coaches make, but they make a very good living. He's probably not
more than most people.
Yeah, they're probably not selling drugs like illegal narcotics that like we would think of.
Yeah, unless he's not. This isn't Breaking Bad,
right?
Right. And let's be honest. Also, what do athletic trainers have access to in abundance? Painkillers.
Yeah. Well, I think the point of this story is largely they're not supposed to, but this is what happens.
Well, I've often wondered this. I'm wondering if the federal government has just been sort of ignoring how painkillers are doled out in the NFL anyway.
It's not just in the NFL. I mean, I think that's it. If you look at the real drug problem in this country, it's everywhere. I mean,
Yeah, but let's focus on the NFL for a minute. Here's what I mean. All NFL teams have a team doctor, and then they send their players out to various, physicians, specialists that are under contract and stuff. But these guys are popping pills all the time given to them by the team. Who's doing that? The training staff's doing it under the loose guise and direction of a doctor, somewhere. So, I mean, are prescriptions being written? Is there a log of this stuff? Is it controlled in a fashion that conforms with federal and state requirements? Or is there just like a stack of various narcotics laying around the trainer's office?
I mean, I think it's in a nice little drawer, probably. That's my guess.
yeah, a little separate cabinet, perhaps.
Yes.
This story and the fact that Ryan Vermilion is alleged to have been selling them to somebody would lead you to believe that it's the latter. There's not like a doctor with a prescription pad there. It's this guy with a stack of, narcotics, naproxen or something.
Right.
Or or codeine or something worse.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely what it is. And let's be clear. They just went after this guy first. This is I think we're about to see a tip of an iceberg moment with all this. And they're just making they're making an example out of Ryan Vermilion.
There's got to be more to the story. I
sure.
mean, one thing the feds don't do are small-time suburban Virginia drug dealers who are selling a handful of pills out to some knuckleheads on the street. So this is a part of something bigger.
It is, and I'm going to be honest. I will be very, very surprised if within a year's time, this isn't all 32 teams are in trouble for this. This is just the first guy,
And the feds don't raid the boss first.
No.
You raid the lower level people, and you kind of work your way up with evidence and stuff.
Exactly. Get them to flip. The old thing, yeah.
Haven't you guys seen The Sopranos?
Or The Wire? Yeah,
The Wire.
Wire was probably the best one for this.
Very good show. There's another show I highly recommend.
Yeah,
is The Wire.
It's a great show.
Outstanding.
Wire's a great one. I mean, all those HBO shows, pretty top notch. Except for that one about like the people who disappear and Yeah.
Well, that one about the dragons and all of that didn't go. It
didn't end well. That one didn't end well.
Yeah, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Total disaster at the end.
Right.
But be that as it may. Yeah, once they ran out of the books,
Yeah.
it kind of went downhill really fast because we learned that those two writers
Didn't know what
aren't
they were
George
doing.
R. R. Martin.
Yes.
Yeah, didn't know what they were doing in any way. Yeah, but we're getting distracted here. So the Ryan Vermilion story. So it's apparently prescription drugs. We guess that it's a much, much bigger story than this, and we'll find out. It could maybe Alex is right. Maybe there's conspiracy between trainers in the NFL. We're totally speculating.
Oh, I don't think
maybe
there's a conspiracy between trainers in the NFL. I just think every NFL team is probably doing this.
There's going to be a conspiracy with somebody though, because again, the feds don't just raid Ryan Vermilion's house for no reason.
Sure. Okay.
So Ryan is working.
He's got to be getting the pills from somewhere, right?
Yeah, there's like a Tony Soprano somewhere who's controlling this, whoever it is, or God knows who. And also, here's the other thing. These NFL coaches aren't saints. It's a hard drinking, hard partying culture. I don't know if people realize this. You and I know this from being around a little bit. It's not. These guys aren't totally innocent. I mean, we saw the video this week of Urban Meyer like grinding on some young thing in some bar.
And young thing being she was probably in her 30s too. Like she it's just compared to him.
Because he's like, what is he, in his late 50s or something?
Exactly.
Totally, he's married. It's totally inappropriate. She could be his daughter. It's
no,
gross,
I understand that, but let's also not pretend that NFL coaches. A lot of them were players. This is how they've always acted their entire lives. So don't be shocked.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah. I don't care what Urban Meyer does or doesn't do. I was just using he can do what it doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But I was just using him as an example. It's a hard partying culture. And remember, there was another Washington coach a few years ago who put out a video. Do you remember this? Of him snorting coke off his desk, and he made this video that was
it was after he left. It
was like to some
the O-line coach for Mike
Yes.
Shanahan, I believe, right?
Right.
Yeah, and did he die? I think he passed away. I don't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Alex is going to look this up while I'm talking. But yeah, he put out a private cell phone video to some prostitute where he was talking about things he wanted to do to the prostitute while he was snorting coke off his desk in the team facility. It might not have been Washington, but like a team facility. So
Chris Foster is who it was. Chris Forrester. Sorry, not Foster.
There you go. That was it. Chris Forrester. Yeah. Yes, that's it. Chris Forrester. And I don't know if he died. Did he die?
No,
Alex?
He didn't die. I'm thinking. I'm probably mixing him up with somebody else.
Is he in prison?
No, he works for the 49ers now. That's where he is.
Because snort coke off your desk, talk to hookers, doesn't matter.
No, if you can coach O-line, you can still work for the Shanahans. Don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, and the Shanahans have. I think it's safe to say that the Shanahans and his collectively have no standards whatsoever when it comes to character.
I mean,
at all.
The irony is, I think guys like them pretend they do. I think they try and pretend, we're morally upright, we're better than everybody else. No, you're not.
Exactly. Your O-line coach was snorting coke and talking to hookers, for Christ's sake.
Right.
And so all of this is to say, if you're shocked that a trainer for a major NFL franchise was dealing prescription drugs to God knows who on the side, you haven't been paying attention. That's our point.
Right. I mean,
now, here's my hope.
I will not. I mean. Here's my one concern, and this is as a Washington football fan, Redskins fan, whatever you want to call yourself right now.
I prefer to say Redskins.
Yes, that's fine. The team put out this statement, this has nothing to do with us, right at the beginning. Did anyone believe that? Because this obviously is going to come back to bite you in the ass at some point soon.
A lot of Washington fans keep their rose-colored glasses on all the time.
Right.
Which I don't understand. It's like you've been suckered for 25 years and you keep seeing the best in these guys. I realize I'm a bit more pessimistic than average, but you just have to be just fooling yourself if you believe anything that comes out of the Washington PR machine.
Of course. But I mean, this is going to come back and bite them at some point, right? Like, there's no way this doesn't at some point. So.
Right. Who's he selling? We'll find all this out. And by the way, this is not, usually I can flash a bar card somewhere and get a hold of pleadings and things and figure out what's really going on. This is not the case yet because the DEA doesn't there's a subpoena somewhere because the federal government doesn't, or yet, give them time. But so far, the Constitution prevents them from just arbitrarily raiding your house and place of business without a court order. So
Sure.
there's an order somewhere, but it's not public. So I can't pull pleadings. We'll get to that point at some point. So I can, and believe me, we will. But yeah, let's just hope that there's no football players involved.
I'm hoping. I mean, look, if they're involved, they're receiving the illegal. So it's not like they're going to be.
That's what I'm talking about. No, that's what I mean. Let's hope that they're not customers.
I mean, just accept that that's going to happen. That's what I'll tell you, because it's going to happen. I don't know who. I don't know when. All likelihood, it'll be more guys from the Carolina Panther days, just because of timeline. So.
You have to think, because who else is he going to be selling prescription drugs to in quantities that are high enough to attract the attention of the DEA?
Right. Exactly.
He's not. He could be slinging it to the kids in his neighborhood or whatever.
Well, he'd likely be purchasing it more in high quantities and then distributing it in very small quantities.
Well, he's not purchasing anything. I think he's probably stealing it from the team.
Well,
would be my guess.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
Right. And because, if he's doing that, the team may have a civil claim against him also. So we'll see. All this stuff is just fun drama because if you're a Washington fan, you can't go 5 minutes without an insane, crazy drama story that doesn't happen anywhere else but Washington.
Exactly. Well, or in this case, like I said, it happens everywhere else, but they're just going to pretend it's only happening in Washington.
Well, but if one team is going to get caught in this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
don't forget, this is a franchise that tried to, pawn their cheerleaders off in Costa Rica,
right,
as quasi prostitutes for rich, donors and or not donors, but season ticket holders, and they were making illicit videos of them changing, right. And just it goes on and on.
And then we punish the cheerleaders as a result of that coming out.
Yeah, I know. Then you eliminate the cheerleaders for this ridiculous, just totally worthless dance team,
right?
It's just,
and they did it
never ending
to retaliate against the cheerleaders for speaking out. So it.
Yeah, we had one of these cheerleaders come to us.
Yeah,
I might have told this story before, and she wanted to tell her whole side of the story, and then we should have got her right at the moment,
right?
But we took 2 days to get it lined up. And in that 2 days, she realized I should never say this stuff out loud.
Yeah.
And she backed out on us. But anyway, yeah, so point is, if this is going to happen,
yep,
this is only going to happen to Washington.
Yeah. Okay. It's an annoying truth.
Yeah. So we're going to stay in the NFL here. And we're going to go to the NFLPA because there's always fun drama with them, too. And this involves John Gruden,
not Jay.
In a disgusting part of it, which we'll get to. So the union, because they're idiots, some of the union leadership wanted to get rid of D. Smith. His term was had come up, was about to expire. They needed to renew him for another term. The players almost voted him down and out. He just Friday, which is the day we're recording this, a couple days earlier for you guys listening, got the absolute minimum number of votes required, 22 out of 32, to keep his job. Now, the John Gruden part of this is another bizarre Washington connection because it's always Washington.
Well, before we get into that, let's talk about the ouster or almost ouster and all this stuff. Now, look, I'm not a big D. Smith guy. I don't think he's done a great job as the head of the union. That said, he doesn't have a lot to work with in terms of this. You know what I mean? A guy is only as good as the tools you give him, and this union's kind of never been. You've said it many times, Steve. It's probably the weakest of all the players' unions, in terms of what their bargaining power has been. So, in the circumstances that he's been given, I think he's done okay. Could he have done better? Should they have maybe tried to get more out of the league when was that last negotiation? 2011, when they almost went on strike?
Well, yeah. Well, there was 2011, and then there was a year ago,
right?
2020.
But that one went pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, that one, yes.
No, they've not gotten enough out, in my opinion, from if you want the union to thrive. But at the same time, it's not like they've gone on strike like they did in the 80s all the time, and so.
Well, yeah, the Redskins Super Bowl year.
Yeah, two of them.
There in '83.
Yeah.
Yeah, '82. And again in '87. D. Smith isn't, I don't think, a terrible union leader. He's an attorney. He's been in the labor world. He's a labor professional. So he does know what he's doing. Whether or not he has the leadership ability to lead the organization is another story. See, I think sports, first of all, regardless of how you feel about unions, and I'm no union guy at all, I don't fall on that side of the aisle, but nobody should feel sorry for a sports union because we're talking about people who make millions of dollars. And so there's a different dynamic to a professional sports union than there is like your local electricians union. This is my point. And the dynamic is that they have a ton of money and they're fighting with people with even more money. And so it's just not the same. What Dean wasn't able to do, like no other NFL union leader was able to do either, was keep the team, by the team I mean the players, unified enough and organized enough to hold out for big things that are really important. They fought over little things like, practice time and things. What they always caved on was the money. They always cave on the money, which is all the owners really care about.
Which, let's be honest, if you're really going to care about this and want the sport to be good, you should have tried to flip that, honestly.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. Like, the owners couldn't care less. The owners don't care when they practice at all. It doesn't
frankly,
matter.
If they didn't practice, the owners would be fine with it. They'd save a fortune on facilities.
Yeah, right. It would save them money. So they'll give you whatever you want on practice. Doesn't matter. And so did D. Smith do a great job on that? No, I don't think so. But he's also not the worst. Part of the mistake these sports unions make is a lot of times they'll elect some former player.
Yeah.
Who's utterly unqualified, but the players all know him and like him. And, he may be smart in player terms, but he's no professional labor lawyer.
No. And, as much as everyone loves Gene Upshaw, I mean, I think that's kind of what Gene Upshaw was. He was well-liked by the players.
That was 100% what he was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Gene made some strides. I mean, Gene Upshaw's the guy who got free agency put in place.
True, and that was huge.
Ironically, Gene made some progress. Now, the ugly side to this that involves Washington, because, again,
somehow
what happens?
I'm still a little convoluted. I actually texted Chris Russell because he's the one about it, or I tweeted him, and we went back and forth, and he explained how this involved Washington.
Okay, so this is crazy. Yes. You want to go ahead and tell it out.
Okay. So, like you initially said, John Gruden said some things that are very disparaging about DeMaurice.
And let me just describe it. I know you don't want to because I'm the big mouth, so I'm going to describe it. What he put in an email, I don't have it in front of me, but he made a reference to big lips.
Right.
Which is a negative, racist, African-American stereotype trope that has been said by bad people
right.
all for years. And so that's what John Gruden put something to that effect in an email that came out. Go ahead.
Yes.
That's what John
Gruden
reason
said. Now, you would think, okay, this happened in 2011. Smith was never with the Washington football team. John was never with the Washington football team. Why does this involve the Washington football team anyway?
Can I guess?
Yes.
Bruce Allen.
It does. It's Bruce Allen.
How'd I guess?
Due to the investigations about the team, emails from Bruce Allen all the way back in 2011, back and forth with John Gruden, it looks like, that's where it sounds like all this came from. And I say sounds like because the email's not public. This is all alleged. So let's say sounds like. But of course, Bruce Allen, the bumbling idiot that he is, keeps the racist emails that people send him for some reason. Probably for blackmail purposes later.
Well, also, I mean, Bruce Allen is a horrible person.
Right. He probably just
surprise anybody. He probably laughed at it.
Yeah, he probably has it printed out on a wall, being like, "Hey, look at this funny thing that this guy sent me."
Yeah, it should surprise nobody that Bruce Allen got an email like that.
No.
No.
I don't ever want to know all Bruce Allen's emails. I'm sure they're horrible.
Oh yeah, they got to be terrible. That ironically really has nothing to do with D. Smith's union vote, but that came out on Friday also.
You say it has nothing to do, it's very mysterious that it leaked out the night of the union vote.
Well, and the funny thing is, Washington apparently produced 650,000 emails.
Right.
And this came out because Washington had the sex scandal, and they were investigating themselves through this lawyer, and because the NFL wants to bury a story and not figure out and solve the problem, they had the investigating attorney Beth Wilkinson just do an oral report to the NFL, in which she says they done bad, and he goes, "Okay, thanks," and that's the end of it. That's the report. But apparently, Washington produced 650,000 emails. And somebody got through all those emails and dug this one up and ironically leaked it today,
right?
Friday.
I mean, they just happened to, which, of course, anyone who knows Washington, D.C., which, nothing happens by coincidence in these types of things. So I'm sure this email probably made its way to D. Smith's desk months ago. And he just said, all right, I need to drum up one or two more votes. Maybe this will help. That kind of thing.
That's possible. That's a possible scenario.
I would say highly probable with my knowledge of how politics goes.
Yeah, we've never interviewed John Gruden at all.
No, of course not.
Or been around him, but just as a general point, like I said about these guys, about the partying and all that, it shouldn't surprise anybody that some coach out there is racist or acted racist in this instance, at least, because these guys aren't saints.
No. They're dumb guys like me, like most people. They'll say stupid things from time to time. It happens. But at the same time, why are we
I've never heard you make a negative, terrible racial stereotype, though, Alex. And all the dumb things you said, it's never been...
No, and definitely not in print.
Exactly. Yeah. Definitely not in print.
No.
So that is...
I may have put my foot in my mouth a few times in front of people, but never that bad.
But never racist garbage, and certainly not in an email to the president of an NBA or of an NFL franchise. That's
no.
I've done.
Or your boss,
what's the story?
Technically at that point.
Yeah. So the story is D. Smith is in for another term.
Yep.
Good luck to D.
And it looks like this is his last year. Like, from what I read in the latest update after this vote, is this will be his final year in all likelihood.
Yeah, that's what the story said, that he's up for a final term. I don't know. I didn't look into this enough to know why it has to be final, whether there's a limit in the NFLPA charter or this D just said, I'm done with this. We'll do one more and I'm out. I'm not sure.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, although Gene Upshaw was in that job for like 20 or 30 years, it feels like.
Yeah, it seemed like it was forever. Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. Who knows?
Maybe after that, they're like, all right, 10-year limit or something.
Well, let's dump the negative.
Okay.
Let's get to something interesting, something fun. And by something fun, I'm talking about Frank Thomas, the former Chicago White Sox power hitter, Hall of Famer. What has Frank done? Frank has bought Field of Dreams.
Right. I'm glad he's using that Nujenix money for something good.
Yeah, that's right. He's the Nujenix guy. That's right. He's got the $1 million smile while selling fake workout pills.
Right. Right. These will just magically make you stronger, and they're not illegal.
Yeah, you can look like me if you take these pills. Not that, even if you weren't born, you hit the lightning strike of the genetic lottery and all that. Doesn't matter. Take these pills. You can become Frank Thomas. So if you recall, Major League Baseball had an incredibly successful game after what seems like forever of trying, like years and years and years of trying, between the White Sox and the Yankees. And it was a White Sox walk-off home run, literally with fireworks literally going off in the background.
Yeah, everyone loved it.
Yeah.
Perfectly set up.
And because Major League Baseball is Major League Baseball, they're going to ruin it, and they're going to do it over and over and over again. And this leads us to Frank Thomas. You see, for a long time, this place was owned by a bunch of regular people in Iowa.
Right. I think it was the same people who owned it when they filmed the movie there.
That is correct. Yeah, and It was for a while. It was like a functioning farm, and those people then they've been trying for years to get baseball interested, and it hasn't happened for various reasons. So now Frank Thomas has bought this land, and I'm just going to take a stab at it and say Frank is not going to farm corn.
You don't think? I mean, like,
I mean, you never know.
maybe he likes corn. Corn's delicious.
So this, by the way, comes from Bleacher Report. MLB Hall of Famer Frank Thomas heads group buying Field of Dreams, a movie site by Joseph Zucker, dated September 30th. And yes, it's a week or so ago, but we're doing the show now. And so the press release here, which you can find on Twitter, of course, is from Field of Dreams movie site, at FOD movie site. We are excited to announce Baseball Hall of Famer Frank Thomas has purchased a controlling stake in Go the Distance Baseball LLC. So what does this tell us? This tells us that this place was no longer owned by Farmer Bob and his cornfield. This was owned by investors who formed something called Go the Distance LLC, Go the Distance Baseball LLC, and Frank Thomas bought Go the Distance Baseball LLC. And so this means that they're trying to monetize this place, and it's, I just don't. Baseball's a habit of ruining good things.
Sure.
And I just.
You don't see the end game here?
That?
Is that what you're trying to?
No. Yeah. What is Frank going to do with this place?
Yeah, I mean, it is a good question, because I was trying to think about that too. Let's say, all right, MLB does ruin good things, but you can make money off of that until they quit, right? Like, but how many years are they realistically going to do this game there? 3? Until
until it gets old and stale and nobody cares about it.
Right. So let's say that's okay. In NFL terms, that would be, even the NFL does this. I mean, they're doing the London game this week, or like they've driven that into the
sick
ground.
Of the London game,
But
there's also a motivation for the London game is to build an audience for a London franchise.
There's no
Nobody's trying to build audience
into Iowa. So
right, it's exactly right.
I mean, it is a weird question. Like, what is the end game here? Because people aren't going to go there as a tourist trap if there's not a baseball game. I guess some people have been, but
I mean, if you're in Iowa, I might swing by to see it.
Right.
But if you're not in Iowa, I'm not going out of my way to see to see the set of a mediocre, overrated movie.
Well, and another part, like, Iowa's a pretty big state. I got to be like within 5 miles to do it.
I mean, I might swing an hour out of my way if I'm driving through Iowa, but point is, I don't really see the end game for what Frank wants. And by the way, so the history here is that Go the Distance Baseball bought this place for $3.4 million in 2012.
Right, which is not a bad deal for a farm, honestly.
Yeah, and they are the ones that bought the place from Farmer Bob, whoever Farmer Bob is. And so now they're flipping it to Frank Thomas, presumably for more than $3.4 million.
Yeah, but how much more is it really worth? Like, that's the hard part. Like,
well, I mean, Frank's going to charge baseball for having another couple games there. And so there's your income. Can he make back, however much, $5 million or whatever out of them for 2 or 3 more games? Presumably, because he's also going to sell tickets and get a cut of the ticket sales and the popcorn and beer or whatever sales and all of that. And presumably they're going to do some more development around there.
Sure.
Also, you would think. It's just a weird investment, I think. I think it's got a limited shelf life.
Oh, definitely.
Because like you said, how many more games are they going to do before people just utterly don't care anymore?
I mean, the only logical idea I could see. All right, so there's now a stadium there, right? So,
well, I mean, stadium's a relative term. They figured out a way to shoehorn a few thousand people in the middle of a cornfield.
Right,
yes.
But it exists.
I don't know if I'd call it Yankee Stadium.
No. But the only logical, like, if you were really trying to make a play with it, maybe you buy it and you're trying to get a single A or double A club to it. Like, you're not that far from Chicago, right? You could definitely justify, hey, if you put a single A club here, it's easier for you to call guys up and down, that kind of thing.
There's almost certainly some form of minor league baseball in Iowa somewhere.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
there has to be.
But you could get a team that needs to relocate or something. That's my point.
Right.
That's Maybe, the only play that would make sense to me with it long term.
But this place is not near. This is in the place in the middle of nowhere.
I'm looking at it on a map. WQ. I don't.
How far is it from Iowa City?
It's not. It's pretty far from Iowa City. It's closer to Cedar Rapids.
Okay. How far is it from Cedar Rapids?
Let me Google Map and it.
Well, we're live on the air. We're gonna Google Map something live on the air.
That's...
If you want to make a trip if you're in Cedar Rapids and you want to make a trip to the Field of Dreams baseball site, we are about to tell you how long it will take you to drive in your pickup truck.
It is 1 hour 16 minutes from Cedar Rapids.
Okay, see, I would do that if I was in Cedar Rapids for an afternoon.
Right.
I would kill an hour, 2 hours drive time, 2.5 hours drive time back and forth to see the place.
Sure.
I would do that.
Sure. I mean, there's other cities that are closer, like smaller towns, but Cedar Rapids. If I say Cedar Rapids, people actually understand that's a city. You know.
Yeah, but your point is drag in the Iowa Cornhuskers or somebody, single A affiliate of the White Sox. Maybe that's the play. But again, if you're an hour, the reason why I asked the question is, what kind of team is going to relocate to 76 minutes outside of Cedar Rapids?
I mean, it is a fair question because, not a lot. Now, Steve, you know this as well, pretty well. My mentality of driving an hour and 16 minutes to go see a baseball game is why would anyone ever do that ever?
Yeah, Alex is not the one to ask because Alex doesn't drive anywhere he doesn't have to drive.
Right. I'm a firm believer in I would like to walk to everything if I could. So
Alex is an urban in-city guy through and through where I would definitely drive an hour to go see the Field of Dreams. But my point is, it's an interesting thought. Sure, bring a minor league team in, but where are they going to live? Who's their fan base going to be? It's when we say an hour and 16 minutes out of Iowa City, that's not like an hour in Washington, D.C.
No, it's an hour of nothing.
It's 76 miles or 70 miles of just nothing.
Yeah, the largest town that's closest to it is only a half hour away driving. So,
and what is
it's the one I can't pronounce. It's Dubuque, Dubuque.
Okay, that town.
Yeah, Dubuque. You tell me.
Dubuque. I'd have to see it to pronounce it. It just seems like it's a lot of effort to go through to do that. If Frank wanted to buy a minor league team, he could easily do that anywhere.
Right. Well, I don't know about easily. I mean, minor league teams are expensive.
Dubuque.
Oh, is that Dubuque?
Yes. He sent a message to me, folks.
It's Dubuque. Okay. And, well, there you go. It's a half hour from Dubuque.
Right. Okay. And that town is small, no doubt. Right. So I just don't understand what he's doing. I just think it's a limited shelf life, and he's going to end up with an empty cornfield at some point and wondering what he's going to do with it.
Farm corn. or better yet, maybe don't farm corn and get tax money.
See, ironically, it's going to go back to where we started. Right. Because in the movie, if you recall, I'm not a big Field of Dreams movie. I thought it was, no pun intended, it was sort of a corny movie.
Right.
If in the world of baseball movies, I thought there was a.
It's not your style movie. It's fine.
No, it's just dumb. I mean, you heard a voice, and I just thought it was stupid.
It's science fiction.
But anyway, kind of. I mean, and somehow James Earl Jones.
There's ghosts and time travel. It is absolutely 100% science fiction as a baseball.
But it's wrapped up in this nostalgia baseball movie. I just thought it was a stupid movie. But anyway, point is, where we started was that he was a farmer who had a cornfield, and he bulldozed it all to build this baseball field because unknown voices connected to his father, dead father, were telling him to do this. And so what we're going to go back to is Frank having to put a cornfield in because nobody wants to see his baseball field anymore. So in that respect, we will have come full circle, and it will be the Field of Dreams once again, only the dream will be to get tax credits from the federal government when he can't farm corn. And sell his corn.
Corn again, yeah. That is the Field of Dreams. I'm not going to do a job, pay me.
The ultimate play here is for Frank Thomas to get tax breaks from the Farm Bureau.
Right. That's his plan.
It has to be that.
He's not going to grow corn, and he won't grow soy. Is that another one that you're not supposed to grow to make money? I don't know. I don't know farm law.
Well, I mean, you can put one cow out there and get ag exemptions.
Oh, I know.
Too,
I happen to know some people who have done that with rural property.
Oh, I've known many people who've done that. And there's one of those behind a shopping mall in my little suburb here. There's one cow that lives in a field by itself.
Right. Well, you're in Texas. That's actually just normal.
Yeah, but this is like not rural Texas. This is
you're in the suburbs.
Suburban Texas with a cow in the middle of a field by itself at all times because you're getting an ag exemption.
Yep.
But anyway, so that's the story on this. If you're listening, please tell us what you really intend to do other than put on like 2 or 3 baseball games. And, maybe this might be a case of an athlete not being very smart, which wouldn't surprise anybody.
I mean, who knows what he paid for it? Maybe, he's like, I want to just retire out in Iowa, and that's going to be my house. Yeah,
I guess
he could be.
I mean, he certainly paid more than $3.4 million for this place.
Sure,
that much is certain, because that's what the guys paid from Farmer Bob. And just for the sake of the argument, before we sign off here, let's see where Frank Thomas is from, because I don't know.
I have no idea where Frank Thomas is from. I'm going to guess not Iowa. Just
let's not guess. He's from Columbus, Georgia.
Okay, so he's a country boy, kind of.
Well, Columbus is an actual city. To you who lives in downtown Washington, D.C.,
right.
That's a country boy. To me, that's another town. I would not call him a country boy. Not like live in the middle of nowhere in Iowa in the cornfield level of country boy.
Oh, no. It's not that necessarily. Although, as far as the city goes. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it is my urban mentality. If you don't have at least 2 pro sports teams, you shouldn't be called a city. That's my mentality.
See, you would probably think I live in the country. Were you ever to see my house?
Yeah, probably. Well,
and I would think that I would never want to live ever where you live.
No, of course not.
So there's different perspectives on these things. Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to end it there because we're babbling at this point. It's always fun to babble, but we've reached the end of our time. So thank you for listening. In terms of the Hogsty, we have got our normal content on Mondays. It's game recap. Wednesdays, game preview, or Thursdays, game preview, and all of our regular written content. Check out Dave Earl's stuff. He's got fan reactions. No one from Tampa has penalties. Jamal covers coaches' comments, and I do whatever weird stuff I can come up with.
Yeah.
So there's all of that.
We got Rick's stuff. We have this show. We're a very, very busy website still.
We are very busy, and we're making a lot of money doing it.
Yes. That's why we've both quit our day jobs.
Okay, I'm done. Right. That's it.
Okay.
We're over.
Talk to you later.
Bye.